Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I am going to assemble these 28mm or 1/56 scale World War II German infantry. These plastic models are made by Italeri in conjunction with Warlord. These are the same as the bolt-action branded Blitzkrieg German infantry, only you get fewer figures per box. I quite like the art on the front of this box. One guy is blasting away with his SMG and the other guy in the back is all like, "Oh ja, essen mein Grenade." I am easily amused. You can see the back of the box has quite a lot of stuff. There's an image of one of the included sprues along with a photo of a set of 6 of these figures all painted up and based. You could build all of these figures with one sprue and they do look pretty nice. The text also lets us know there's enough components to make 12 figures, equipped with a reasonable variety of weapons. The lower part of the box has some more painted examples, this time with numbers that indicate which colour from the chart of Italeri paints has been used on which part of the figures. I quite like this. It's obviously not super in-depth, but it conveys enough information to be helpful. I might try painting these this way with Italeri paints. One day, maybe. Of course, we can see the little extra yellow box on top, the rear of which tells us about more kits in this range, and on the front lets us know of the included brush, paint and glue. Let's look at what we get in this kit. We get 2 of these sprues which contain enough bits and pieces to make 6 Germans per sprue. There's a good variety of guns and arm options on these sprues, including things like shouldered weapons, ammo boxes, and belts of ammo for the MG34, which I think is pretty cool. Obviously, to make 6 figures, 6 bodies are included, along with a variety of backpacks and separate pieces of equipment. These parts are all quite nicely detailed and neatly cast, though the mold lines are a little heavy in some areas. Nothing too obnoxious though. It won't take too much effort to clean up. You may also notice here this sprue is even branded for Warlord games. It tells us right there above the rifles that this is in fact a sprue of bolt-action Blitzkrieg German infantry. No weapon sprues are included with this kit, unlike the British and Soviet infantry kits from Warlord that I've built. There are enough weapons, though mostly rifles, and the variety is a little bit limited. That's not a huge issue for me though. Each sprue has 10 different heads. This allows for quite a good deal of variety between your figures. You won't be able to give all 12 men this box makes their own individual heads, but you will get close. I quite like these heads. They all look pretty good. I quite like the guy with the glasses, and the guy with no hat or helmet kind of looks like Christopher Walken to me. There are 2 of these little sprues of 5 25mm bases. This makes 10 bases for 12 figures. You may remember that I encountered a similar issue with my bolt-action Soviet infantry. The issue was resolved by Warlord, and because of that I do have a couple of extra pill-shaped bases I could use for this. I believe the reason for this is that 2 prone figures are included in this set. They would normally be placed on pill-shaped bases rather than round. I'm not sure why they don't include any of those. You can obviously see a base for a prone figure on the back of the box. If you don't have appropriate bases for these prone figures, I would suggest contacting Italeri about it. I don't know if Warlord would help in this case like they would for bolt-action branded models. Hopefully, Italeri would be as helpful as Warlord were with my base issues with the Soviets. Also included is this single-sided sheet of instructions. This is quite similar to what you might find in a Warlord infantry kit. It has a few pictures of assembled models with some brief descriptions and an image of the sprue with numbers and a guide to what is on that sprue, which is always helpful. There is also an advertising leaflet for both Italeri and Warlord, which I am sure is of great interest to everyone. The contents of the extra little yellow box are similar to the Italeri Panther I built recently. We get this adorable little bottle of glue, one single Vallejo colour, German Field Grey, World War II, which I do already have. The box doesn't really mislead us as to how many paints will be included, but I do kind of wish they would include more. Also, including Italeri paints like the suggested colours on the box would be nice too. And of course we get this small brush. Nothing too fancy, but it's always nice to have another brush around. Now to start building some krauts. I'm going to start using all these parts to make a kneeling rifleman. You can see the arms and gun are all one piece and some of the mold lines are pretty heavy, but not horrendously so. As always, I start the build process by scraping those mold lines from the selected parts. They're removed easily enough without spending too much time on the task. I then drilled a hole into the foot into which I will later glue a brass rod. I don't actually have any brass rod on hand at the moment, but I'm sure you can imagine what gluing that into place might look like. This could of course be done before scraping the mold lines off or even after completing the model. Next, I attach the right leg. It doesn't really have any keying to guide its positioning, but it's not hard to guess at where it should go, and I guess this allows for the leg to be positioned at a few different angles, if you're really after that kind of variety. The part goes on very easily, and now we have a pretty nice looking kneeling figure. He's mostly armless though, so I fix that by adding the arm and gun set. I apply glue to the flat arm attachment point on both sides of the torso and then slide the arms into place. These aren't hard to put on and get the gun to look nice and like it's being held up and aimed properly. This can often be a challenge with arms and guns that are all separate pieces. I think this looks pretty reasonable. Unfortunately, the gaps where the arms join the body are a bit big and almost impossible to avoid. This is the main downside of having the arms and weapons all in one piece. It can be fixed easily enough with green stuff, and to be fair, you often have to do the same thing with multi-part arms and guns too, so I can't complain too much. I then use probably too much glue to attach some equipment like a bedroll and gas mask case. There aren't really any guide parts to help position these, it's just a matter of guessing and test fitting really. I'm not sure if there are any specific sets of equipment for specific bodies. I don't think so though. The part does go on, but there's a bit of a gap on the right side. Not a big deal though. I don't think this gap will need to be filled. I then choose a very shouty head for this body. I won't be gluing it on because I want to paint the head separately, but it's a good idea to test fit the part anyway. It looks like it fits well enough. All of the heads in this kit have kind of flat neck joints, so they should work pretty well on each body. Unlike with my Soviets, I'm not too worried about keeping each head matched up with a body. I can sort that out once they're painted. I quickly drill a hole into the neck part of the head so I can mount it to some pinning rod to make painting easier. And that's one figure completed. Mostly. Let's have a look at some of the other options this kit has. I decided I would like to make a prone MG34 guy, and I noticed a small issue with the instructions. The prone arm and prone MG34 firing arm are listed as parts 29 and 30. They are incorrectly numbered on the sprue diagram as 2 and 3. Not a huge issue, but some people may be a little confused by it. I did spend a minute or two trying to find the correct arms. I'm an idiot. Anyway, I glue the left leg onto the prone body. This does have a bit of keying to help with positioning, which I found helpful. The part goes on quite easily. There is a little bit of a gap, but nothing too bad. It's kind of hidden as an edge between the jacket and the pants. I then glue the prone MG34 firing arm to the right side of the body. This is obviously different to the previous figure in that the arms and gun are separate parts. I glue the arm on and use the gun to try and figure out the positioning. You may also find it helpful to lay the figure on the work surface to ensure the arm doesn't go below the level at which the body will be laying. Then I add glue to both the hand and shoulder where the gun will rest, and then I position the gun like so. I kind of wanted to have the gun aiming a bit more straight relative to the body, but it only fits such that it faces left a bit. Still good though. To be used in the prone position, the gun will need its bipod, so I glue that into place. Again using the flat work surface to help properly position this part too. Then I attach the left arm, which is kind of just holding the body up. It doesn't interact with the gun and it goes on quite easily. You can again make use of your work surface to figure out a nice position for this arm so it looks like it's contacting the ground, rather than just hovering mid-air. I give the figure a gas mask box and choose a head for him and he's done. He's not perfect, there's a few gaps, but he's pretty good. Now he needs a loader. This is something in this kit that I think is pretty cool. You can take the second prone body and instead of attaching an arm with a gun to the right side, we can attach this ammo case with a belt of ammo coming out. Use the work surface yet again to help determine the level you want the part to sit at. You can also place it against the MG34 gunner to be sure these parts match up nicely, and they really do go together very nicely indeed. I was considering mounting these prone figures on their own pill-shaped bases, but now I think I'm going to mount them on the same base. They will both be fielded together as an MG team anyway, so what could it hurt? I may magnetize the loader, that way he is removable in case of death. I think this is really cool. You could make a nice interesting scenic base for these. Now I just need to order a 50 or 60mm base to get started. It really would be awesome if one was included in the kit. Moving on. I quite like this figure in the running pose. Behind the foot that contacts the ground there is what looks like a rock, or maybe it's meant to be a dust cloud. Either way, it gives the model a larger surface area to glue onto a base. This is a nice touch and some thoughtful design. I wanted to give this figure a Luger, but the only way to do that is to cut the hand off another arm and attach the hand holding the Luger to the stump. This is quite easy and I think it looks fairly good. The sleeve of the uniform should hide any gaps that are present. I then glue the Luger arm onto the running body. I tried to place this as though he's just running with the gun rather than firing. I also needed to allow enough clearance for one of the ammo belts because I decided this guy would be another loader, running along to bring more ammo to his gunner. For this I used the arm carrying an ammo case, which I think is a pretty cool inclusion. Much better than if they had separate ammo cases that you had to precariously glue onto carrying arms. I think it looks pretty good, though the shoulders, again, have a bit of a gap in them that will need to be fixed. To finish this guy off, I will give him this ammo belt that can be hung around his neck. I think this is a really cool extra part, though it was a little bit tricky to remove the mold lines, so it does look a little bit rough up close. Because I'm a nincompoop, I didn't film myself gluing this part to the model, but this is what it looks like. Initially, I wanted to give this figure the shouldered submachine gun, but it would not have worked very well with the ammo belt, so I went with the Luger instead. I think it looks pretty good anyway. I test fit ahead to make sure there won't be any issues fitting one later, and it looks like it will fit nicely. I did one more thing just to add a little bit of character to this little infantry set. I built a figure with the intention of using this Christopher Walken looking head with no helmet. There is one spare helmet per sprue, so I decided I would give the figure a carrying arm and then glue the spare helmet into that hand. Really simple to do. He's got the shouldered SMG, so he's not unarmed. He looks as though maybe he's just come running up to his commanding officer, removed his helmet, and is now relaying a message or something. It tells a little story. I do enjoy incorporating little things like this into my armies. So there we have it. I've finished 5 out of the 12 figures in this box of plastic World War II German infantry by Italeri, which happens to be the same as Warlord's Blitzkrieg Germans. I do obviously have another 7 to build, but I'm in no rush to get these done, so I'm just going to slowly put these together as I'm watching various shows and such. In the video you can see here, I've temporarily attached the figures to bases and given them heads. I've done this with a tiny bit of superglue. The good thing here is the superglue bond will easily snap apart, and can then be scraped off the parts before painting begins. I really quite like this kit. It was easy to build. I didn't have any issues putting the first 5 together, and I don't imagine any problems cropping up in the rest of them. The parts are nicely moulded and for the most part go together easily and neatly. The biggest problem in that regard is the shoulder gaps. This can easily be fixed with green stuff, and I would consider it a very minor problem to have. There is a reasonable amount of variety to be found in this box, and the resulting models are very nice looking. However, I probably wouldn't buy one of these infantry box sets again. Not because of the quality, these are good models. The reason is pricing. This Italeri box set costs $32 Australian in a brick and mortar hobby shop, and you get 12 figures in the box. The Warlord branded Blitzkrieg German infantry box can be had online for 55 or 56 Australian dollars, and you get 30 figures in that box. That works out to be about $1.80 per figure in the Warlord box, or $2.60 per figure in the Italeri box. I know which price I would rather pay. This pricing, surprisingly enough, is reversed in comparison with the Italeri 28mm scale tanks versus the Warlord versions, where the Italeri option is cheaper. Strange. I'm sure there is a reason for this, but I don't quite know what it is. At any rate, if you can find this Italeri German infantry box set much cheaper than I paid for it, it might be worth getting. It certainly does pay to do your research on the pricing of things. This certainly won't be the entirety of my bolt-action German army's infantry force. 12 figures is nowhere near enough, but it is a start. Future additions to my infantry force will likely be late war models, unlike this Italeri kit which are early war Germans, you know, being Blitzkrieg and all. Chances are, further infantry additions will be bolt-action branded plastics, but if anyone has any other recommendations for German infantry figures suitable for bolt action, I would love to hear about them. So, if you do have such a suggestion, or any other comments or questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. That'd be just dandy. I hope this video has been helpful or interesting for you. If you like it, click the thumbs up button. If not, obviously click thumbs down. And if you feel so inclined, I would really appreciate it if you did things like subscribing, and sharing my videos with all your friends or anyone you can think of that might find them helpful or interesting. That would be splendid. If you really like what I do, please consider helping to support me via Patreon, at patreon.com/Erpaderp. That would be pretty great too. As always, thanks for watching. Farewell.